Welcome, everybody. Welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome, fellow deplorables. Welcome, fellow dregs to society. Welcome, all you fellow rock dwellers. Welcome to your home, the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. And joining me today as my co-host is the patriot from the battle-born state, the silver state of Nevada. That's my friend Sharon Angle. Sharon, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos.
Thanks, Rick, and it's great to start a new week with Conservative Commandos. Interesting stuff in the news always after a long weekend, but I guess the most, I don't know, kind of alarming thing, and no pun intended, but Notre Dame is on fire. Yes. And, this is an 850-year-old cathedral in Paris, and they're right now fighting it. It's out of control, I think. There's lots of smoke and fire coming out of that building. And, of course, my first thought when I heard the story was, terrorists. And, of course, in 2016, there was a terrorist attempt on Notre Dame that was foiled. But I thought, they made it stick this time. But that doesn't seem to be the case, at least not preliminarily anyway. They've just said that they've got a renovation underway in the cathedral, and they feel like something from that renovation probably started the fire.
Well, we'll know more in days to come, that's for sure. But Sharon, I've been to Notre Dame. It's an absolutely beautiful cathedral, probably the most famous cathedral in the world. And the reports that we've seen, the video, the pictures, the roof collapsing. As you were talking, you and I were talking before the show. Here's an 850-year-old cathedral. It survived 2 world wars, and here it is flames. I would think that maybe they can reconstruct it as long as the walls don't collapse down around it. It'll probably be years and years, if not a decade or two. But what a shame. It was such a beautiful, beautiful place. My wife and I had an opportunity to visit there a few years ago, and it's just a shame. It's just a shame, like when anything like this happens.
That's right. Well, on to more exciting things, I guess, or maybe happier things. I don't know. On tax day, how does it get happy? But
it's hard. Well, it can be a little happier. I think that people have actually been saving on their taxes since the Trump tax plan was approved, and I think that people have been seeing a big difference, or seeing a difference in their paycheck. So tax day is never a good thing. It's always a pain in the butt. It is a pain in the butt. I wish that we would just go to a national sales tax, okay? But I think that would solve a lot of problems. I mean, just think of it. Just think of it, all the aggravation that goes along with doing your taxes.
I know, and it's costly too. And it seems like you can't really do them yourselves because of the tax law. It's just incredibly onerous. But there's some new polls out, and I guess Goldman Sachs agrees with you. They say that Trump has a narrow advantage in the 2020 election, and that he has, besides his built-in advantage of 5 to 6 percentage points, he also has this stronger economy that's adding to his edge. So this whole thing that he's been doing, getting jobs back, getting the tax reform, is really helping. And the Democrats, bless their hearts, they have now 20 people in the race that the Emerson's national poll has done of these 20 Democrat candidates. And Bernie Sanders is leading the pack at 29%, followed by Vice President Joe Biden at 24%. And then it just goes right down from there to this mayor. We talked about him a week or so ago, Mayor Pete Buttigieg out of South Bend, Indiana. He's got 9%. Beto O'Rourke and Kamala Harris have 8%. Elizabeth Warren has 7%. And HUD Secretary Julian Castro and Andrew Yang each have 3%. Some of these guys I've never even heard of. And, we've had our good friend Dr. Gerard Lamero on, and he's predicting a Trump-Obama run. Michelle Obama will run. That's what he's predicting, and she's not even in that cast of 20 yet. So stay tuned. There's more to come from that side of the field, and all of the folks that seem to think that they can take Trump on this time, which...
Bring him on.
That's right. Bring it on, because we're waiting to see. We're waiting to see if the rest of Dr. Lamero's predictions will also come to pass. It's always good to have him on the show for those reasons.
Well, Dr. Lamero, and I tell this story that the day of the 2016 election, when everybody was predicting a Hillary Clinton landslide, Dr. Lamero come on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and he accurately predicted the number of electoral votes that Donald Trump would get, except for the state of New Hampshire. Dr. Lamero predicted that Donald Trump would get 311 electoral votes. Dr. Lamero correctly predicted every state except for New Hampshire, and we're coming to find out there was a lot of voter fraud in New Hampshire. So let's hope he's right this time, and I think things are boding well for Donald Trump, and I have a little piece of news on that. President Trump's election campaign is set to report that it has raised more than $30 million in the first quarter of the 2019, edging out the two top Democrat rivals combined, according to figures provided to the Associated Press. The haul brings the campaign's cash in hand to $40 million, an unprecedented war chest for an incumbent president this early in the campaign. So that bodes very well for Donald Trump. And this guy, Buttigieg, this mayor from South Bend. South Bend is a town or a city of about 100,000 people, which is a relatively small place, Sharon. And I contend, if it wasn't for his sexual preference of being a gay man, nobody would know about him. I mean, he would be a laughing stock. I mean, think of South Bend, Indiana, a mayor of South Bend, Indiana, a town of about 100,000 people. Probably most of that is Notre Dame, University of Notre Dame. I mean, the fact that the mayor of South Bend, Indiana is in third place. I mean, who's ever heard of this guy? Who's ever heard of anything that he's done except for one thing? He's gay.
Well, and he went to Hollywood. And he went to Hollywood to get their money, too. So, right. I guess the next thing on my radar is this new music. Shall we stop and go to our break? Okay.
Let's do the break now. We'll pick up on that on the other side.
Sounds good.
We also got some great guests to talk about, but this is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharon Angle. We've got three great guests joining us once again today. A lot of interesting topics. But today's show, like all our shows, is being brought to you by the First Amendment, protected by the Second. Don't go away. Sharon and I will be right back.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharon Engel. For rebroadcast of our shows, please check out our website, CCRShow.com. That's CCRShow.com. Please like us, friend us, and follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. Sharon, we've got three great guests joining us today and some interesting topics of conversation.
Yes, we do. Our first guest is Todd Shepard, who is a staff writer at the Washington Free Beacon. He began his reporting career in radio, working as an anchor and reporter for KOMA out of Oklahoma City and KOA out of Denver. He spent 8 years as an investigative reporter for the Independence Institute in Colorado, a free market-based think tank. And he has Campaigns and Elections magazine naming him as the top Colorado influencer for his reporting and news blog. He's written an article, Fishermen's Association Suing Over Climate Change. They're suing Exxon over climate change. So that will be really interesting to see how these guys plan to keep their industry afloat, really. If they're suing the guy that supplies the energy that gets the boat out on the water for them. Our second guest is Art Harmon, our friend, who is the director of the Coalition to Save Manned Space Exploration. He was a legislative director and foreign policy advisor for Representative Stockman in Congress and is a veteran policy analyst and grassroots political expert. His expertise includes foreign relations, border security, amnesty, national security, transportation, foreign broadcasting, and, of course, NASA and space policy. And we've asked him to come on and talk about an article that he wrote, Sanctuary Cities and the Alinsky Rule Number 4, Live by Your Own Rules. I didn't think they had any rules, so that'll be interesting to get Art on here to talk about rule number 4, which is live by your own rules.
Well, that was one of Alinsky's rules for radicals. That's what that was, rule number 4.
Right, so the radicals of our day and age don't go by Alinsky's rules. Our final guest is Dana Allen, who's the leader of a new television network, America Uncensored News Network. And by the way, we're on AUN News
Yes,
TV.
we are.
And Dana was the co-founder and chairman of Newsmax.com from 1998 to 2000. He was the president of American Investigator Television from 2000 to 2001. And he was the founder, CEO, and president and chairman of Sequoia Data Corporation from 1987 to 1996, where he founded the first pure e-commerce company, which went to market in 1989 with CompuMarket, a product quite similar to today's eBay. Dana has written an article, Crime Statistics Show Democrat Voters Much More Criminal Than Republicans. But what about Democrat politicians? So we're going to get into the whole idea of crime and the Democrat Party, which I guess since Chicago, none of us should be too much surprised about that. You know, we've known for a long time that Chicago was invested in criminal activities along with politics, so why not the rest of the nation?
Why not? Why not? Again, 3 great guests joining us today.
That's
Some
right.
very interesting topics of conversation. So, Sharon, what else is on your radar screen?
Well, measles. We've been tracking this measles problem because of the open border. We have outbreaks of things that we pretty much thought were eradicated here in our country, that we've been vaccinating against, and thought, well, you know, we've got this under control. And the number of new U.S. measles cases continues to accelerate. Last week, as health authorities race to curb the outbreaks, and scientists who study the virus say measles may be more harmful than once believed. There have been 555 cases of measles in 20 states across the U.S. this year. And as of April 11th, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention reported Monday that 90 more of them were reported last week. So it's just, you know, kind of what goes on when you have an open border and people are not screened for what they're bringing into our country. We go back to the drawing board, and our whole population now becomes at risk. I know that measles for pregnant women is pretty ominous. And
indeed, very, very serious. We've had a family member who has eye problems, and it's associated with that when his mother was pregnant with him, she had measles.
Yeah.
You know, so very, very dangerous situation. Very dangerous.
Scary, isn't it, Rick?
Yes, it is.
How this can be a part of our country now, where we think we've got this under control. We've taken a lot of precautions. We've made a lot of people mad because, we vaccinate their children when they come into school, and then we just open that border up and let anybody come in with whatever they've got. Yeah. You know,
you mentioned diseases that we thought we've had under control. TB is making a comeback, and you cannot convince me that it is not because of people coming here legally and illegally from other parts of the world, and they're bringing TB and measles and a lot of other diseases with them.
Right. Well, my last little tidbit, because you and I fall into this distinguished class of baby boomers, now they're talking about the death boom. So we impacted our culture when we were born, and now we're going to impact it again when we die. It's interesting that they are now making predictions over the death of baby boomers. And by 2037, 3.6 million people are projected to die in the United States. And that would be an outpace of the growth of the overall population. So more than half of all American deaths also lead to cremations, about 28% in 2002. But they predict that by 2035, that rate will be 80%. So, not only are we dying, but we're choosing not to use funeral homes anymore. And so a whole industry is being impacted by our choices about just how we're going to take care of that.
Yeah, well, Sharon, I'd like to know how they're going to get along without us, right?
I don't know.
So many of the younger generation are complaining about the baby boomers, and the baby boomers were right after what I call the greatest generation, the generation that fought and won the Second World War, the generation that ended the Great Depression. Let's see how they do without us. That's all I've got to say about that.
Well, I know we're having some reelings going on just from the loss of the greatest generation, because they really kind of kept the stability in this country that we lack right now. Right. And I guess my greatest regret from my generation is the 60s and that whole revolution that went on during our unspent or ill-spent youth. I can't apologize enough for all the things that we experimented with, like marijuana, and now we're finding out, much to our chagrin, that it's not a harmless drug, and in fact our children and grandchildren will probably suffer for decades because of the use of this drug. And then when you talk about marriage and the disintegration of the family, it was our bold move in the 60s to make love not war and to live together rather than get married, and that has come back once more to haunt us with the breakup of the family, and it's in every family now that we sadly have families that are not single family units any longer.
I'll sum it up in just this way: the proliferation of liberalism. That's what started then. That's what's going on now. And again, God knows what it's going to look like in another 30, 40, 50 years. And as I say, I think they're going to miss us. I think the younger generations are going to miss us. But we do need to take a break and get our first guest on. And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. On the other side, we're going to be talking with Todd Shepard. He's a staff writer for the Washington Free Beacon. And we're going to be talking about Fisherman Association suing over climate change. But they refuse to talk about their own greenness. Don't go away. Sharon and I will be right back with our first guest.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. I'm co-hosted today with Sharon Angle. And for rebroadcast of our show, please check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. You'll find our radio show there, our TV show there, a lot of great articles and information. And Sharon, our first guest of the day is with us. Please make him feel welcome.
Well, it's a real pleasure to introduce Todd Shepard, who is staff writer at the Washington Free Beacon. He began his reporting career in radio, working as an anchor and reporter at KOMA in Oklahoma City and KOA in Denver. He spent 8 years as the investigative reporter for the Independence Institute in Colorado, a free market-based think tank. Campaigns and Elections magazine named him a top Colorado influencer for his reporting and news blog. Todd, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Hey, it's great to be with you both.
Well, Todd,
I guess I should start off by saying Happy Tax Day, right? So,
right.
I don't know. Happy days, huh?
No kidding. I just made my breathless run to the post office, so.
Well, you know, here at Conservative Commandos radio show, we'd like to see something other than that tax. But so far, we've not seen any real movement in that direction, it doesn't seem like. So we're stuck with it for at least another year. The Pacific Coast Federation of Fishermen have had a little uprising, I guess you would call it. You wrote an article, Fishermen's Association suing over climate change refuses to questions on its greenness. And the director has ties to a congressman who asked for an AG investigation of Exxon. You know, I just don't see fishermen here. That's why I said an uprising, because I guess I just don't see them as climate change guys. And yet here they are, just joining in the ranks of those who believe in climate change. We've just about debunked that, I thought, but here we are again with a lawsuit. What's going on there?
Yeah, and Sharon, I guess I'll say up front, as I talk about some of these things, I will use some language where it will sound like I'm assuming as though climate change is happening and that it is man-made. And I'm doing that just for the sake of the discussion. It doesn't necessarily mean that those are my personal views or that those are the views of the Free Beacon. Again, it's just sort of for the ease of the conversation. And to, I guess you might say, let's say, give the fishermen the benefit of the doubt on the premise, but let's go a little deeper here. So back to your original question, what's going on here? Let's first remember that a lot of these lawsuits that we've seen that are very similar to what the Pacific Coast Fishermen's Association are doing, these started in 2017, where you had coastal governments, and essentially they started in California. So we're talking about coastal governments like San Mateo County, San Francisco, probably not much of a surprise, and their sister city of Oakland, and a few smaller governments like that in California, who started these lawsuits against not just Exxon, but BP, Chevron, and a whole host of energy producers. I generally refer to it as Exxon, as a singular entity, though. So it started with these governments, but that's the foundation that really sort of sets us up. That's what makes the Pacific Coast Fishermen's Association lawsuit against these energy companies so unique, is they really were the first non-government that's gotten into this business. So you're right. Now, look, I will also quickly add that with an association like this, I would give them the benefit of the doubt, just like, I grew up in Oklahoma, Tennessee, Colorado. The farmers I knew in those states, they said that they were the stewards of the land. I have no reason to believe that otherwise, and I saw everything to prove that. I believe these fishermen probably love their oceans, and they're probably very environmentally conscious. But I still went to the association and I said, listen, if you're suing, can you show me what green transitions you have made? Which of your fishermen have made completely green fleets? And I got no response whatsoever from the association. No response back from them.
No Prius boats out there.
I like the way you phrase that. Now, of course, using wind power was the original green energy in aquatic transportation, right? So how many of them have just returned to their roots and have become sailing fleets? But for anyone that goes to the Free Beacon, or if you look up the article on Google, just look up Fisherman suing Exxon, you'll find it. But I think, one of the interesting things that I point out in the article is, and this won't surprise any of your listeners or readers, but it's just fun to sort of document it for the sake of the proof. And that is, look, there's an interdependency between fishing and the use of fossil fuels. It only makes sense, right? So, for example, I linked to an article from the UK Daily Mail in 2013. Why 2013? Well, because that's the year where the whole world was experiencing really high gas and diesel prices. And that article said, oh my goodness, your fish and chips is going to go up 50% if these prices keep on. And that doesn't shock any of us, because we know that core prices of a commodity that go into your inputs, like diesel or gas, it's going to be passed on to the consumer, and they're the ones that are going to feel that rise in the commodity.
Well, I guess I'm shocked that first of all, I have to say my tongue is in my cheek when I say this, but I'm shocked that it's coming out of California. It's amazing that Ocasio-Cortez comes from New York, because you would think that her new Green Deal would come out of California. They are so conscious of that. And so I guess that's my first shock, is that it's coming from California. But my second shock is that these guys don't want to be romanticized again as Moby Dick, out there on their whaling boats with their sails unfurled and going out after their catch that way. Although it seems to me that the biggest shock is that, in all fairness, they really are cutting their own throats, it would seem like, when they go after Exxon. If they even don't win this suit, it would seem that this will drive the cost of diesel up, and that they are actually causing the price cost of their product, of their whole industry, to go up. Am I wrong there? But it just seems like this is like fouling your own nest.
No, I think you make an interesting point. And by the way, you have a gift for metaphor, and you have a gift for finding these just right names. Bringing in the Moby Dick conversation. So look, in the last couple of days, actually, starting about Thursday and Friday of last week, and then coming into Monday, there's been a development where some island governments in British Columbia, Canada, in the Vancouver area, so really we're talking just right across from Seattle, they basically have decided not to engage in some of these climate lawsuits. And I think that that's a pretty important turning point in the way all of these things have gone. But I would say, Sharon, I want to be clear that I'm speculating here. I don't have clear evidence on this, but I hope to maybe do some more reporting on it. It's quite possible that they realized that exactly what you just suggested, that going after, because many of these governments are on island communities, again, they're very dependent on fossil fuels to get tourists to them, both by ferry and by plane. And so, and there was a little bit of a local outcry. In fact, there were some other Canadian governments who protested the suits because of the sheer number of employees who worked in the energy business, which, of course, that's no surprise given how great an energy producer Canada is. So on that level, I think you're absolutely right. The other thing I'd quickly mention about, California is there are a lot of connections between California and New York between all that's going on legally against a lot of these producers. So thus far in the conversation, we've mainly just talked about these lawsuits. But in a way, these lawsuits are very closely dependent on, and they're very intertwined with a lot of government investigations. So let's just remind everyone watching and listening that the now disgraced Attorney General of New York, Eric Schneiderman, of course, he's no longer their Attorney General, but he was very active in trying to initiate an investigation into Exxon under this whole Twitter hashtag ExxonKnew, which is a whole campaign saying that Exxon and a lot of these other energy companies knew 30 years ago that climate change was happening, and that they initiated a big cover-up to be able to continue to sell their product. I know we've probably got a break coming up soon. We could talk about this a little bit more after the break, but this opens up a whole host of political connections that show you that sometimes these motivations may not be exactly what you'd see when you just read a news report that says the fishermen are suing the energy producers.
Well, and of course, that's where we want to go, is we want to find that connection, because there obviously seems to be one. And I'm glad that you're going to go there with us. Todd Shepard, who is a staff writer at the Washington Free Beacon, is talking to us about an article that he wrote, Fishermen's Association Suing Over Climate Change Refuses Questions on Its Greenness. And they're suing Exxon. We'll be right back after this break to discuss further what the connections are, the political connections behind this agenda. We're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. And now you can watch our TV show on the AUN TV network in Northern California. We'll be right back with our co-host Rick Trader, our guest Todd Shepard, and I'm Sharon Angle.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Department, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect. How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole, was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
Saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People die and fall for the right to vote. It's so it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharon Angle, a lady who not only has great metaphors, but it also has a terrific sense of humor. Our guest this segment is Todd Shepard. He is the staff writer for the Washington Free Beacon, and we're discussing an article Todd wrote about a Fishermen's Association is suing over climate change. Todd, thank you for staying through that break. We appreciate your time. And in the background there, Todd, I see that you have this famous political cartoon of Join or Die, which, interesting enough, I learned some time ago that was one of our very first political cartoons in our country's newspaper. But Todd, this idea of this Fishermen's Association suing over climate change, and you write in your article that this is about the executive director of the PCFFA. His name is Noel Opperman. He was a former staffer for a Democrat representative. And I was wondering, Todd, maybe you can answer this. How much do you know about this guy? What my thinking is, this might be more of his political agenda than members of this Fishermen's Association. Your thoughts?
Well, I would start off by saying, first of all, I'm going to try to avoid drawing conclusions here. That's not my job as a reporter. I assemble facts and put them into one place, but I will say, look, I've had a lot of association in my reporting career because of where I've worked in Colorado, in Oklahoma. I've known a lot of cattlemen's association. I've known a lot of oil associations. And I think you should always sort of try to determine how much that the person who's leading the association has actually had work, physical work in the industry, right? Because that'll tell you a lot. Now, look, it's important to still have someone that brings other skills to a job like that. But it will also tell you something else if the person spent 30 years running their own ranch and now runs the Colorado Ranchers Association as well. And in this case, that's not what we have here. We have a guy that's done a lot of oceanic studies and so forth, but he's also had a political career. And as a part of that, he has worked as the spokesperson for this Democrat California representative. And this is where I tie back to where we left out last segment, Sharon, what you and I were talking about. So this representative urged the California Attorney General to launch an investigation as to how much Exxon knew about, whether they had determined some conclusion as to whether climate change was happening in the 70s. Now, again, this just relates back to what was going on in New York, and so really, Sharon, it's more evidence of this theory you were putting out there that it's these two deep blue states that have been the drivers of a lot of this political agenda. And an investigation was begun like that under Schneiderman. So, does this necessarily prove anything? Not necessarily, but there's a lot of evidence, circumstantial, to build on a case that if one wanted to put forward a theory that the Fishermen's Association making this lawsuit, that there were a little bit more of a political edge than some other, we certainly got a good basis of facts to start that investigation and to go deeper into that question. The one other thing I'd mention quickly, because I didn't put it in the article, but I'm sure probably some of your listeners are maybe asking right now, there is no official dollar ask amount in the lawsuit. So in other words, they're sort of asking the court, hey, once you have figured out what you think is a proper damage, you would award that.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I think, Todd, this also brings up another question. We can nuisance lawsuits.
Right.
I mean, it's just about anybody today can institute a nuisance lawsuit, and I think that opens up a whole nother can of worms about how bad we need tort reform. You know, you and Sharon were talking about our good friend AOC in New York, and you were talking about the former Attorney General of New York instituting these lawsuits. And it seems like they go after these deep pocket companies like ExxonMobil. But we have to remember this. Those costs that ExxonMobil incurs in defending themselves from this lunacy, we as consumers are going to pay the bill. Just like any cost because of additional fuel cost, or let's say someone comes down with an edict, say no more diesel power boats, we've got to revert back to sail. Can you imagine what that would do to the price of fish, which we as consumers must pay? So when people look, oh, well, they're just going after the deep pockets of ExxonMobil, no, they're not. It's going to end up coming out of your pocket, Mr. and Mrs. Consumer, in the end. And you know, Todd, I'd really like to know how Sig and Edgar Hansen from the Deadliest Catch, how they would feel about this if they were members of this organization.
You know what? I like that question, and I may try to track that down. And if I get that story, I will break it on the Conservative Commandos.
That would be terrific.
Yeah. But, you know, you raise a very interesting issue, and I don't know if you've seen some of my other reporting on this, but I've been reporting on these climate lawsuits for about 14 months now. And here's the other part of this, and it comes out of your question here is, in all of these government cases, these are contingency fee lawsuits in which they brought in an outside attorney to do the lawyering for them, and that outside attorney only gets paid if a damages award is meted out by the judge. And look, there are a lot of ethical questions about that sort of system of using. Look, you're using an attorney general's power, or if not an attorney general, you're using the power of the city attorney or the county attorney, which is very nearly the same thing. But you're using the power of the state to try to go and get damages out of someone, and just like you said, in a nuisance lawsuit. And so while the government at least is able to say, well, we're doing this at no cost to the taxpayers, there's an ethical concern that's very serious. And in a lot of my articles, I've quoted former Colorado Attorney General Gail Norton, former California Attorney General, and former California Representative Dan Lundgren. And look, Dan, I think, said it perfectly. He said, look, when you're talking about the average citizen and contingency lawsuits, he said that has brought, maybe there have been some people who didn't have a checkbook that they could go get a lawyer, and it gave them a method to get justice. He said, but I'm not worried about that when you're the state of California. I'm not worried about your ability to get justice when you're the city of San Francisco. He said, right. And here's the quote I loved. He said, they know where the courtrooms are, right? They've known for 100 years where the courtrooms are. And so here's the other part of this. The same attorneys that have become the contingency fee attorneys in all of these cases, they are the same attorneys for the Fishermen's Association. So again, I won't draw any conclusions from that, but it's another piece of the puzzle.
Well, they certainly have a knack of keeping themselves in business, and you can also say, like, for instance, when you have class action lawsuits, who makes out in class action lawsuits? Well, the lawyers do. The lawyers do.
Really do.
Well, Todd, next week will be the 49th anniversary of Earth Day. Okay, the first Earth Day was on April 22nd in the year of 1970, and there was some predictions made during that time, and this kind of relates to what we're talking about. At that time, they predicted the end of a civilization in 15 to 30 years, 100 to 200 million deaths to starvation in the next 10 years, and a new ice age by the year 2000. Now, I recently saw a report, I guess, on Yahoo News that talked about the alarming rate of the ice caps melting. So these people don't know what they want. They didn't, at that time in 1970, they were fearful of an ice age. Now they're fearful of the ice caps melting. I believe in climate change. I really do, Todd, and I'll tell you why. In the last 100,000 years, there have been 4 major ice ages, about every 25,000 years. The last one was about 12,000 years ago. At that time, there was an ice sheet that covered North America all the way down to Princeton, New Jersey. In some places, that ice sheet was 2 miles thick. Now, something happened to that ice. I don't know what they were driving or how they were heating their home 12,000 years ago that melted all that ice, but that ice is gone. So I do believe in climate change. But this idea that humankind are causing it is still not proven to me. And I don't care how many reports I read about all these alleged experts and scientists are so determined that mankind is causing this and that CO2 is causing this. And if it wasn't for CO2, there would be nothing green on Earth living. And if it wasn't for CO2, there would be nothing living in the oceans either. So this whole idea of this Fishermen's Association coming out on the side is of climate change, and CO2 is causing it. I mean, I think it's ridiculous. That's just my opinion.
I'll leave you with this thought. First of all, as for me personally, I just make it a personal policy not to seriously invest myself into Malthusian predictions of the future, because I'm very optimistic about what humankind can do. I mean, humankind has created environmental problems in the past, and we've also solved them generally. But the last thing I'd leave you with is, I think the one advantage that the Fishermen's Association has that, say, maybe a Cattlemen's Association doesn't have is the animal that they're involved in harvesting doesn't produce a flatulence that has as much methane that makes quite as much of a problem for us globally. So I'll just leave it.
Did you ever smell a rotting fish?
Well, yes.
Todd Shepard, we want to thank you so much for joining us here on Conservative Commandos Radio Show. Todd, please tell our audience how they could follow your work, read your articles, and pick up this article.
Sure. On Twitter, follow me at Shepard Reports, or just look us up at freebeacon.com. And we've got a lot of great reporters here that do great work on all sorts of items of interest to your listenership.
Todd Shepard, again, thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless.
Thanks.
And this is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. Don't go away. On the other side of the break, we're going to be speaking with Dana Allen. He's the head of a new network starting, AUN Television Network, and Dana's going to be talking about crime statistics show Democrat voters much more criminal than Republicans. Very controversial, but don't go away. We will be right back.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving, and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People die when they fall for the right time. It's too brutal. So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. Want to give a shout out to the folks who listen to us on radio stations in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Long Beach, California, and seen on the AUN television network. Speaking of which, Sharon Engel, we have our next guest with us. Please make him feel welcome.
Well, it's always a pleasure to introduce Dana Allen, who's the leader of a new television network, America Uncensored News Network. Dana was the co-founder and chairman of Newsmax. From 1998 to 2000, he was the president of American Investigator Television from 2000 to 2001. And he was the founder, CEO, president, and chairman of Sequoia Data Corporation from 1987 to 1986, where he founded the first pure e-commerce company, which went to market in 1989 with CompuMarket, a product quite similar to today's eBay. Dana, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you, Sharon. And I know we have Rick all the way in Pennsylvania, but Sharon only lives about 1 mile from me.
That's right. Seems kind of fun, doesn't it, to be connecting on Skype instead of just sitting here talking in our living room. We looked at an article that you wrote. Crime statistics show Democrat voters much more criminal than Republicans. But what about Democrat politicians? So here we go. We always knew that Chicago was rife with political intrigue and organized crime. And it's all Democrat stuff there. But this has really gone national. It's kind of viral these days. Talk about some of these politicians that we've caught in the act.
Yeah. Well, you know, on television, we're on the air in Northern California. And it would be a little bit unfair if you pick a city like Chicago or a state like California that's dominantly Democrat. So if you do look at the crime statistics, and Wikipedia puts out a list of every single politician convicted of a crime, and it's like 90% of the politicians in California are Democrats that are convicted criminals. But that's not really fair. So then I decided, well, let's look at Utah, which is almost all Republicans. Well, there hasn't been anyone this decade convicted of a crime, a politician in Utah. It's pretty impressive. You have to give Utah a pat on the back. So then I looked at South Carolina, and actually the same relationship is true. It's mostly Republican, and most of the politicians there that have been convicted of a crime are Republicans. So the fair way to do it is look at the big, high population swing states, which are Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. And so if you go into Wikipedia and you look at this list of convicted criminals, it's in this article, every single one of them, you add it up, it's 9 Republicans that have been convicted of a crime, and it's 30 Democrats, a ratio of over 3-to-1 Democrats. And this confirms the same thing we see with the grassroots, where like Detroit has a murder rate of 46. It's the most Democrat voting city in the United States. The least Democrat voting city in the United States is Provo. It has a murder rate of 1, and that's not an aberration. City by city, there's this relationship among the base. I was just curious, what about the politicians? And the same relationship is there.
Wow. Well, we've been experiencing it actually here in our Nevada legislature. We've had 2 that have now resigned during the session, which is really unheard of. Yep. But it's because of criminal charges, one with FEC stuff and the other one with sexual harassment stuff. So it's really interesting to me that when the Democrats get into power, we seem to have this moral failure among our politicians. Is that correct?
It is great. It's not uniform. There is some on both sides. It's actually surprising. It is surprising how many politicians are convicted of serious crimes and go to prison for years. But nevertheless, it's true. Like, who would you consider, Sharon and Rick, to be the most wholesome Democratic president ever?
Wholesome?
Really only one name that comes up.
Jimmy Carter?
Well, he was on the wholesome side. I would agree with that. It's usually Harry Truman.
Oh, okay.
Because people, liked him more. And I was shocked when I found out his real history. His real history was he was a dues-paying, hood-wearing member of the Ku Klux Klan. Not only he's officially a member of a mass-murdering crime gang, which was called the Pendergast Gang, or the official name was a Jackson County Democratic Club. And they murdered a bunch of people, and that's how he got into office. And I had no idea. So even among the most wholesome, perceived Democratic politicians, it's generally true. Yes, not 100% true, but generally true. And one thing I didn't know about, Sharon, when I investigated this, there was a Democratic politician in Nevada that almost attempted to murder the speaker, and then the police had to chase him down. This was fairly recent. I missed that story. Wow. Yeah. They chased him down in a police chase because someone said he's going to try to kill the speaker, and he had a gun in his car and it wasn't registered to him. And then he's gotten into more domestic battery charges, and he's not in the legislature anymore. But pretty shocking.
Pretty shocking. And you mentioned that attempted murder, but most of them are more white collar stuff. It seems like bribery. Go figure, right?
In Pennsylvania, that is absolutely true. I just looked at it, and it was just crime after crime after crime, and it's mostly bribery. It was mostly what it was.
Yeah, bribery and conflict of interest, felony conflict of interest. I don't understand felony conflict of interest. We in our legislature have conflict of interest. I mean, absolutely, we've got so many government workers elected to the legislature, and they're voting on their own salaries down there. That, to me, is the supreme conflict of interest, but I don't think anybody's ever charged them with a felony. How do you get felony conflict of interest?
Imagine what wages would be in the United States if all employees set their own wages. We'd have Venezuela-like inflation where it cost 1 million pesos to buy a loaf of bread.
Well, in our opening today, we were talking about the baby boomers and how that generation is now starting to die, and we're once again affecting things. But we were talking about how we defected the culture in the 60s, and of course everyone knows that old hippies never die. They just go off and get a university professor job like Bill Ayers, but you've said that the Democrats, and that's a flourishing of, the 60s were kind of the beginning of this progressive movement, if you will, and a flourishing of that movement now has come full blown or full cycle, and now we're really reaping what we've sown here. And you were talking about the family. We talked about that too, that was the generation that brought in this make love not war. You can live together, you don't have to get married, and on and on and on with just the casting down of what we thought were traditional family values. And now you've got a connection between Democrats and the family.
Absolutely. In the city of Detroit, which is the most Democratic city in the United States, it votes 98%. I had to check 3 sources before I believed that. 98% Democrat voting. Wow. The child and infant death rate is 120 per 10,000, I guess it is. Or it's 1,000. I guess it'd have to be 10,000. Okay, that
might be 100,000. Usually, when they do these statistics like that, they go 100,000.
It could be 100,000. It is horrendous. That is worse than most poor third world countries in the world, and a lot of them are dying from premature deaths or whatever. And part of it is the breakdown of the family. It was an astonishing number were being born to teenage mothers who were unmarried, and that helped accelerate this extremely, high rate of infant death in Detroit. Although the second leading cause was violence, being murdered.
And Dana, if I could jump in, what about abortion? We know that 40% of all abortions are to black children. Okay, again, Detroit being a very black city, that doesn't even, and I'll call it murder. I'll call it murder here. Those murders also are not even counted in this. Hey, Dana, we have to take a quick break. Could you hold on for just a few moments for us, please?
Be glad to.
And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharon Engel, and our guest is Dana Allen. Dana is the CEO and president of AUN TV, and we're discussing an article that Dana wrote. Crime statistics show Democrat voters much more criminal than Republicans. But what about Democrat politicians? Well, we're answering that question, so don't go away. We will be right back after this break.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
Saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People die and they fall for the right to vote. It's so it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to buyyourtimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. Buyyourtimeshare.com. That's buyyourtimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcast of our show, please check out our website, CCRShow.com, CCRShow.com. That's one-stop shopping. You'll find our radio show, our TV show, a lot of great articles, a lot of terrific information. And our guest this segment is Dana Allen. Dana is the president and CEO of American Uncensored News Network, AUN-TV, which we are a proud member of here at Conservative Commandos. Dana is also the producer of the documentary Who Wins When America Loses. Dana, tell our audience how they can get that documentary.
There's a website called gettrilogy.com, and it's just not my documentary. It also has Sharon Angle's documentary in the same package. And it has so much information, it'll blow you away. I do encourage people to get it. And you made a comment about abortion just before we went to commercial break. And a way to look at this is what are the greatest human right abuses in American history? And they have a common theme, and it is the Democratic Party declaring some people not to be people. So they started off with blacks, saying that blacks really aren't quite human. We would never treat a white person like this, but, blacks really aren't quite human, so let's put them into slavery, which was their signature issue. Then their next issue was the Cherokee Trail of Tears. Well, the Indians, the Cherokees, are not really quite fully human, so it's okay to kill them to steal their lands. Then it kept going. They did a medical experiment in the 1930s, all the way through to the 1960s, on finding out what happens to people when they have syphilis by lying to black people, telling them they were treating them when they were doing nothing just to study them die. So what's the newest group that they declared to be not quite human? And that is unborn babies. And so if you look, they've admitted on their three prior times, they've admitted they're wrong, that actually blacks are human beings, Indians are human beings, but why should we trust them when they pick another group to declare as not human? Not quite.
When you can't trust a Democrat anytime they're opening their mouths, that's when you can't trust a Democrat. Dana, your article here, again, criminal statistics show Democrat voters much more criminal Republicans, but what about Democrat politicians? In your article, you talk about the three swing states, the three big swing states of Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. You list in your article all these state representatives, mayors, governors convicted of things like perjury, tax evasion, fraud. Pennsylvania really stands out, Dana Allen. Really stands out, even compared to Ohio and Florida. Dana, what is the most corrupt state in the nation? Is it Pennsylvania?
No, I think I've heard it's Illinois. But the most corrupt states are Democrat states, and Pennsylvania is a swing state. It does go both ways, but it has now. Can you consider another state? Would you consider New Jersey, or which state do you consider, Rick, to be the most corrupt?
New York. I would say New York. You know, just without knowing any facts or figures, my knee-jerk reaction would be New York. I don't know. That's just a total guess on my part.
Yes, I can say what the least corrupt state is, and it is Utah, and it's the least Democratic. And it's pretty amazing. We have to pat them on the back. Not one conviction in 9 years.
What about California, Dana Allen?
It was. I looked at the entire list. It's a huge list, and it's about 85-90% Democrats that are convicted of crimes.
Wow.
And California is a special state to me. I was born there. I was born in San Francisco. I'm like a fourth generation. My great-grandfather and grandfather helped found the town of Palmdale, which is actually very big now. It used to be 50 people when they started it. And, you know, the question is California going into a death spiral similar to Detroit, where Detroit has depopulated, 1 million people have left, houses are sold for 25 cents a square foot, if they can be sold, even though they're in fine condition. You know, can that happen to California, or can California avoid it? And I think, you know, to our viewers, that's a huge question. I'm not sure. It is headed towards the path of Detroit, but there's a happy story, which was New York City was headed exactly the same place. In the early 1990s, it was in just as bad a shape as Detroit. The Bronx was burning. The murder rate was just as high as Detroit. But then they did something. They churned course, and they stopped voting Democrat, and they elected like 4 or 5 terms in a row of Republicans, and it was called the New York Miracle. The murder rate dropped from 30 to 5, becoming one of the safest big cities in the world. Real estate skyrocketed, you know, and it wasn't before that. Jobs went up. Everything got better. So that says that if people change course soon enough, that a Democratic death spiral can be avoided. Now, is California going to do that or not? That's to be answered. I hope it can happen. I hope getting the truth out about this, if people look at Detroit, you know, it would fit Albert Einstein's definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. You know, it's never worked. And so when things get worse, that's what a Democratic death spiral is. When things get worse, it makes people vote more Democrat, which makes things worse, which makes them vote more Democrat until you end up 98% Democrat voting city like Detroit that's just totally destroyed. If they just change course like New York City did. And so I hope that California changes course.
Well, you know, when you talk about the Republican mayors of New York, we're talking 2 terms of Rudy Giuliani and 2 terms of Michael Bloomberg, who said he was a Republican. But I think that the 2 terms of Rudy Giuliani really pinpoints how you can turn the city around. Before that, I think it was Mayor Dinkins.
Yeah, 90% of the improvement took place underneath Giuliani, but it didn't get worse. It actually got a little bit better after him because Bloomberg followed.
Yeah, I would say it was the continuation of the Giuliani effect. I mean, crime went down the city of itself, New York. Going into New York, you take the bus over, you get off at the Port Authority terminal. Oh, and you have to walk down 42nd Street. What used to be strip joints and X-rated movies and very seedy. It was very seedy. Rudy Giuliani, under his mayorship, his guidance, absolutely rebuilt that 42nd Street. Now it's a great area. It's a terrific way to be introduced to New York City versus what it used to be like.
The first time I was there, because I was trying to save money, and I had a startup Silicon Valley firm, which you talked about. To save money, I went into Penn Station from a train from Philadelphia, and I walked to the Jacob Javits Center. And someone told me, don't do it. It's not a matter that you might be killed. They told me, you will be killed. You will not make it. And I was in a business suit with a briefcase and a laptop computer, and it was scary. Yeah, I made it, but it was scary. And 5 years later, that was at the end before Giuliani. After Giuliani had been in for 5 years, not only would I do that, I would walk to Times Square at midnight. You know, I'd walk 2 miles, or no worries at all. It used to be so scary before the turnaround.
Well, my wife and I have done that many times, you know, walking from like Times Square down 42nd Street back to the Port Authority terminal. Late at night, it's a very festive area. You don't feel threatened in any way. Hey, Dana, we have to run. But before we do, please tell our audience how they could read your articles, follow your work about AUN TV, about the AUN TV website. Give us the 411.
Sure. It's real simple, AUN-normal-TV.com. And then if you're interested in the documentaries, that's Get Trilogy, 2 T's, gettrilogy.com. And I encourage people to look at it. It is a full 90-minute documentary with all these facts and 100 times more.
Well, Dana, I'll say, I learned things in watching your documentary, Who Wins When America Loses. It's jam-packed full of information, and it's almost like it almost seems unbelievable until you research it, and you're right. You're right on so many things. You talked about Harry Truman, but you also talked about the origin of the KKK and other things. I mean, what a very educational documentary. Dana Allen, again, we want to thank you so much for joining us here on the Conservative Commandos radio show. Take care and God bless.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And you are watching and listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with our friend Art Harmon. He's former legislative director for Congressman Steve Stockman. Art's wrote a terrific article about sanctuary cities and Alinsky rule number 4, live by your own rules. Let's see if the Democrats are. Don't go away. We will be right back.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Department, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect.
How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole, was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why? Well, why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People die and fall for the right it's too brutal. So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharon Angle. Yes, that's Sharon Angle. And Sharon, our next guest is with us. Please make him feel welcome.
Well, it's always a pleasure to introduce our friend Art Harmon, who's the director of the Coalition to Save Manned Space Exploration. He was a legislative director and foreign policy advisor for Representative Stockman of Indiana in Congress, and is a veteran policy analyst and grassroots political expert. His expertise includes foreign relations, border security, amnesty, national security, transportation, foreign broadcasting, and, of course, NASA and space policy. Art has developed the strategy to kill a 2013 Senate Gang of 8 amnesty bill as violating the Origin Clause, and provided policy advice to the Trump campaign transition and the White House. He wrote what became the Bible of the post-Brexit trade relations, which was introduced in 2016 by Senator Mike Lee as the United Kingdom Trade Community Act. Art, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Oh, Sharon and Rick, it's always such a pleasure to be on with you all and to talk to everybody listening.
Well, we want you to talk a little bit about your latest article, Sanctuary Cities and Alinsky Rule Number 4. Live by your own rules. I didn't think that the progressive movement, the radicals in our country, live by any rules. Do they still follow Alinsky's rules, or is he just out of date now?
Well, Alinsky has been at the core of left-wing socialist strategy for decades. Barack Obama and Hillary both studied Alinsky. And they use them. The left has used those rules for radicals. Look it up. You can find the rules for radicals on the web. You can get the book and so forth. And basically, it's nothing specifically socialist, but what it is sort of a set of psychological and tactical and strategic rules that can be applied to anything. You know, whether you want to create a community center or you want to tear down American society, that they can be used for that, because technology is nonpartisan and so forth. So, but the left likes to portray our President Trump, as being an idiot. Well, number one, idiots don't amass, billions of dollars, build a real estate empire, change the face of cities around the world, change the architecture and so forth, or transform our nation into a prosperous nation, and let's keep America great. So when the when the president said, let's send illegals to the cities that are begging for illegals, the sanctuary cities, well, it's a brilliant tactic on the president's part. And it follows Alinsky's rule number 4, which is to make the other side follow their own set of rules.
Well, we have watched him do some of these things in the past, and it does stymie the other side. They don't know what to do with it after he has suggested it. So tell us, how is that going then? So Trump says sanctuary cities should take the illegal aliens. They want them. They've created a sanctuary for them. Here you go. You can have them. How's that going for them?
Well, it's like torture, Trump cranked the troll meter up to 11, and what we're talking about this because I wrote an article in redstate.com called "Sanctuary Cities and Alinsky Rule Number 4: Live by Your Own Rules," and you all can look it up and read it online too. But they are undergoing intense pain. And I love it because they've been saying sanctuary cities, keep the feds out. We want our city to welcome and embrace illegals. So if, Oakland, San Francisco, LA, New York, and the list goes on and on and on and on, should each be lining up to say, we'll take more than the others. We don't want just 100,000. It's going to be about 1 million illegals crossing the border this year alone. 1 million. It's that bad. 100,000 almost a month. So, and in fact, I think last month there was 100,000 or so. So if each of these cities would say, no, we want 200,000. We don't want just 100,000. And they kind of elbow out the others and say we want more. You would think that's what they do. And if you look at it from sort of the liberal mentality, okay, well, you've got a big city. Its voters have evidently allowed or empowered their leaders to raise taxes really, really high. And put up with homelessness, crime, drugs, and everything that illegals can bring in, and so forth. And so you would think they would be saying, well, we've got the resources, so it's the humanitarian thing to do, rather than put them in little towns and cities that don't have the resources. And the voters have not said, yeah, we want a sanctuary city. We want this to be the gathering place for illegals. So they're in great pain, and one of these times you just got to say, I love it.
Well, I think it's a great idea. Why don't we just send buses to the border and truck them right on up to San Francisco and Oakland, and I guess Las Vegas is one of those sanctuary cities now too. I mean, it's hard on the states. It's hard on the cities to try and assimilate those kinds of numbers. And yet that's what they're asking for, is what you're saying. That's the rule that they made. They said this is what every city should do. Well, they should set the example. That's really what your article is saying. Pony up. Do what you say.
Yeah.
So how's that working? Have we seen any of these cities come across and say, yeah, we're sending our buses today. We're going to pick them up.
I think Chicago broke ranks with all the others and said, yeah, send them. We do want them. It'll be interesting to see. And here's where what might be behind some of the angst amongst the left at hearing that the president really wants to send illegals to the cities that really want illegals. And that is that, another one of the left's ideas is you overwhelm the state so that services break down and people then demand more government to solve it. And so, I think they're delighted to see that happen in any other city, sort of not in my backyard. Nancy Pelosi probably doesn't want 10,000 illegals in her neighborhood. Same thing with all the other big liberals. Does John Kerry want 10,000 in his neighborhood? Ted Kennedy used to complain about building windmills off of Hyannisport and so forth. It would mar the views. So this is forcing them to live by their rules, risk alienating their own voters as services break down and hundreds of thousands of illegals make every street look like the horror stories we've seen pictures of in LA and San Francisco.
Well, I was just in the Chicago area a couple of weeks ago working on a campaign for a conservative candidate there. And what we found was people are leaving. If they have good jobs, they're looking for a place to go. They're looking for another city to be in. They don't want to be in the Chicago area anymore. And it is really causing a lot of problems for school districts. For instance, the populations are going down, so they're not able to hire as many teachers because these people are leaving the area. Now, maybe that's part of Chicago's desire to have the illegal aliens come, is that it boosts up those numbers again. Now we get more school teachers now, as you were saying about boosting up local government. Is that the case? I mean, that's what the reality is people are leaving these cities.
Yeah. Well, and it's going to what it's going to do is further the flight of the able, the entrepreneurs, the business people, the residents who have been the backbone of the society, having a safe society. They're the ones that are moving to the red states. And what this is going to do is kind of interesting because it's going to give the red states more voters as they move there and make some states that are kind of purplish now more red as the people leave the swamps that are the big liberal cities. New York is in financial trouble. It went nearly bankrupt in, what was it, the late 70s or something, had to be bailed out by the government. Believe me, this president is not going to bail out New York. He'll let them sink in their own mess. But if they, maybe they should be taking 1 million illegals. I don't know.
Well, certainly we've seen an interesting thing going on here in Nevada with the outpouring, or what we call the refugees from California pouring into our state, and it hasn't necessarily turned us red. They get used to living under tyranny, and they expect tyranny. There's an interesting, it's almost Stockholm syndrome in some ways. We're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. And now you can watch our TV show on the AUN TV network in Northern California, one of those sanctuary cities, San Francisco. We'll be right back with our guest, Art Harmon. We've been talking about sanctuary cities and Alinsky's rule number 4, live by your own rules. We'll be back with him, our co-host, Rick Trader, and I'm Sharon Engel.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. Like us, friend us, and follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. Our guest this segment is Art Harmon. Art is the director of the Coalition to Save Manned Space Exploration. He's also former legislative director for Congressman Steve Stockman of Texas. And Art has written an article. It's up on Red State, Sanctuary Cities and Alinsky's rule number 4. Live by your own rules. Art, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Oh, thanks so much, Rick and Sharon. I just love being on Conservative Commanders. You guys are great, and I really am thrilled to always be able to talk to the listeners and viewers of Conservative Commanders.
Well, we always enjoy having you on, Art. And again, Art Harmon really helped us out immensely at CPAC. A lot of the great interviews that you saw us do down at CPAC either was videotaped or hosted by Art Harmon. So, Art, you are a good friend of us.
Thanks so much.
Art, in your article, you write, if one illegal is good for a sanctuary city, 1 million should be a great thing. And apparently, President Trump agrees with that. And in fact, you write in your article, Trump brilliantly applied the fourth of Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals, make the enemy live up to its own book of rules. Art, maybe the president read that book, Rules for Radicals. What's your thoughts?
I'm sure he did. This guy is a master negotiator. If you haven't, read Trump's book, The Art of the Deal, and you get a sense of the way that he thinks. And it's like he's playing chess, and he's several moves ahead of everyone else. Now, the media loves to mock him for his tweets, but think about it for a minute. What are his tweets? The tweets are essentially the red meat chunks you toss to dogs when they're chasing you. And then they go off and they follow that while you're doing something else. So when he tweets out something that the media says, oh, no, he's done it now. How could he say that? Well, he probably just signed, something like, deregulating, 20 agencies or something. And you won't hear that in the media, but because they're off chasing the, little tweet. It was funny, once there was that Kofivi tweet. And the media just spent days and days. What was he thinking? What does this mean? And my thought at the time was, Trump's probably sitting there in the Oval Office and he's just kind of chatting and saying, I got something big coming up and I want to distract the press. What should I do? The advisor says something like, shiny objects, sir. And he says, oh, great. Okay, I know. I'll do a typo on Twitter. And they will, and indeed, they twist.
Their heads will explode.
So when he's doing something, you don't necessarily hear about it in the media, and obviously not reported the way it is, but the effect then comes out brilliantly, and dealing with the space program, the vice president a few weeks ago said that we're going back to the moon in 5 years. And that's something that's been needed and that I've been campaigning for a long time, because China's going to be on the moon in the mid-2020s. If not, then they will be, they'll claim it like the South China Sea. So it's a strategic thing. And so he's always thinking these steps ahead.
Right.
And in this case, it was just brilliant.
Well, Art, I think sometimes some of Trump's supporters get frustrated with him because, as you say, he's thinking 4 and 5 steps ahead. And for instance, do you remember the DACA deal? He floated out there the DACA deal. All right, give us the wall. You can have DACA. And I think a lot of his supporters were, what is he doing? What is he saying? But could it have been a strategic move on the part of Donald Trump, knowing the left would never accept that deal?
Absolutely.
They would never accept DACA for the wall. So therefore he floats it. That way he could say, look, I try to give it to them. I try to give them what they want. They just won't work with me. Art, talking about Twitter, Cher was out there Twittering. And actually, Donald Trump agreed with Cher when Cher says, look at all the Americans in my city that we can't feed, we can't house, that we can't educate. And now you're bringing a lot more people in with social problems, with health problems, with educational problems, with economic problems. We're talking about Cher. Donald Trump agreed with the tweet. Your reaction?
Brilliant. And I love it because there's probably, millions and millions of Democrats who are getting more and more fed up with this. The resist, the CNN 24/7, 365 of hate. And of course, all lies. They never apologized after the Mueller report turned out to be a nothing burger. But it people realize, okay, there really was nothing there. We've wasted 3 years of our lives glued to CNN, watching nothing happening. But I love what Cher did, and she will dig into the heartstrings of millions of other independents and Democrats and undecideds and get them to see. They'll be thinking, well, wait a minute. Yeah, I agree with her. What about us? And this thing with jobs. Just a very small anecdote. During the presidential campaign 3 years ago, I was in a diner near Baltimore and working with a candidate.
That sounds like a movie from the 1980s. A diner in Baltimore.
It'd be a great one. Oh, amen. And so we were just chatting with the waitresses, Hispanics and African Americans. Now, you would expect in Baltimore and waitresses from, those backgrounds that they would be anti-Trump. But you know what? They told us in sort of hushed tones, we're for Trump. And you know why? Jobs. Because they didn't want illegals coming in and taking their jobs. They didn't want them watering down the wage rate.
Of course, when you got 15 million illegals here, supposedly come to get those jobs. I mean, that's 15 million jobs Americans aren't getting. Hey, Art, we got to go, but I wanted to, one last thing here. You and Sharon were talking about, all these cities say, no, we don't want these illegals except for Chicago. There might be another effect that's going to happen here. Other cities, other states, maybe not coming out of sanctuary. Maybe they're not going to be a sanctuary state or a sanctuary city now because they don't want to be targeted with thousands and thousands of these illegals coming into their town.
Exactly. Yeah, this is bringing out into the open what people have been thinking for so long but are afraid to talk about, and that's sort of a Trump effect. He does that. Years ago, nobody talked about making things in America anymore. It was sort of passé, and the world is advanced. But now everyone talks about it, even Democrats and Bernie and stuff. But sort of the cat's out of the bag on sanctuary cities, and it's now something that can be talked about much more openly. And I think, you're right. This will put a damper on cities that want to be sanctuary cities, and those that are going to start getting backlash from their voters.
Art, one more thing, because we do have a little extra time. I wanted to ask you about this. Art, from past conversations, I know you were there when the Berlin Wall was coming down. Yeah. And we saw something happen after that with the dissolve of Eastern Germany and West Germany taking in Eastern Germany. And that created a huge economic crisis for West Germany at the time. I wonder if you can equate what is happening with the illegals. What could possibly happen with the illegals going to these sanctuary cities, these sanctuary towns, using with what happened in Germany after the demise of East Germany, how it affected the economy of West Germany for many, many years. I don't know that it's ever recovered.
Beautiful point and interesting comparison because East Germany was a disaster case. Its economy was still like 1940s. There was pollution everywhere. When I was down there, I'd blow my nose in East Germany, and it would come out black. I would touch the car, and my hand would be black from the coal soot. And so, it took probably 20 years for West Germany, the main core, economic core of Germany today, still, to replace the infrastructure, the filthy coal plants, and so many other things, and bring up the standard of living. Now, a lot of private companies stepped in and built factories. VW and others built factories in the East, but labor is cheaper, and labor is still cheaper in the East. It's still more poor. But what we're doing is kind of creating, in a way, our own East Germany in America. East Germany is with great numbers of people who
very poor people with problems, economic problems, health problems, educational problems, crime problems. Art Harmon, we got to run, but it's always great to talk with you, Art. Appreciate your time. Please tell our audience how they could follow your work, read your articles such as this one.
Sure. Well, thanks so much, and always a pleasure to be with you. Redstate.com. I write a lot for Red State, a little bit with The Hill and others. But Sanctuary Cities and Alinsky Rule Number 4, look that up on Red State, Art Harmon. And then Save Man Space. That's my passion to get us back into space and on the moon and so forth. SaveManSpace.com. And on Facebook and Twitter, Save Man Space as well.
All right. Art Harmon, again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks
Take
so
care
much.
and God bless. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and Rick Trader. Don't go away. Sharon and I will be back with more right after this break.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to buyyourtimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. Buyyourtimeshare.com. That's buyyourtimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Well, Sharon, that just about wraps it up for today's show. I want to thank you for sitting in today as my co-host. Please tell our audience how they could follow what you're doing when you're not here at Conservative Commandos.
Well, they can go to my website, SharonAngle.com. And, of course, as one of our guests mentioned, Dana Allen, go to GetTrilogy.com. Get Trilogy, that was with 2 T's.com. And pick up the 3 documentaries that we have there. 2 from Dana, What Happened? Who Wins When America Loses? Fake News Kills, and Not on My Watch. And I'd like to thank our guests because they make the show. First, we'd like to thank Todd Shepard, the staff writer at the Washington Free Beacon, for being on and talking to us about the fishermen suing Exxon over climate change. Art Harmon, always a fun interview with Art. Who is the director of the Coalition to Save Manned Space Exploration, and he talked to us about sanctuary cities and Alinsky's rule number 4, live by your own rules. And finally, our friend Dana Allen, who's the leader of the new television network, America Uncensored News Network, who talked to us about crime statistics show Democrat voters much more criminal than Republicans. And, of course, we can be seen on the AUN TV network.
All right, but for right now, we are out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on TV and on radio.
Serious allegations of voter fraud. The claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
Saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People who died and fought for the right to vote at the time, it's too late.
So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say,